Và nó chính vì vậy mà chúng tôi cùng với các quý vị chúng ta có mặt ở
Larry! Let's see!
A tree. And now we'd like to bring on Michelle Field,
Little Saigon.
our congresswoman who has...
Are you guys having fun here? And we have a great person that who is gonna be our governor. ELDER. After you have to sign the envelope because if you're not, so I trust every one of you. We're gonna make Larry Elder our next governor in 10 days.
My goodness, Michelle, thank you for that.
Larry! 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 Larry!
Just a few more days, you're going to have a new governor. His name is going to be Governor Larry Elder. As Michelle pointed out, the way this man has governed for the last 2 years, he does not deserve another day, let alone the next term. He shut down this state, ignoring science, sitting up there at the French Laundry restaurant with donors, lobbyists, and the people that drafted the mandates that they were not following by not wearing masks. They were not engaging in social distancing. His own kids were enjoying in-person private education while denying the opportunity for in-person education for our kids in government schools. Before the pandemic, our schools were near the bottom of all 50 states. Before the pandemic, 80% of our kids in government schools are black and brown. I only mention their race because the left prides itself on caring about black and brown students. Before the pandemic, 75% of black boys could not read at state levels of proficiency, and those levels are not particularly high. Half of all third graders could not read at state levels of proficiency again, and those levels are not high. The math scores even worse. We're spending $15,000 per student per year, 19th in the nation, but our scores are near the bottom. And they were denied a whole year of in-person education while, as I said, his own kids were enjoying in-person private education. It is outrageous. One of the many things I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pushing for school choice. The money should follow the child rather than the other way around. There's going to be a ballot initiative for ESAs, that stand for Education Savings Accounts. $15,000 per year in that account. The parent can control whether to put that money in a government school, in a charter school, in a religious school, in a private school, or even homeschooling. The number one obstacle to that, the California Teachers Union. Number one funder of my opponent, California Teachers Union. And by the way, have you noticed where they put their own kids? Roughly nationwide, roughly 10% of all families have their own kids in private school. 6% of black families do. There was a study that was done on where public school teachers send their own school-age kids. In Philadelphia, 44% of Philadelphia public school teachers with school-age kids with their own kids in private school. Chicago, 39% of Chicago public school teachers with their own school-age kids in private school. Los Angeles District. A Los Angeles school teacher with a school-age kid is twice as likely to put his or her own kid in a private school compared to a family that does not have a public school teacher in it. That's the equivalent of opening up a restaurant, putting up a sign saying, "Come on in, eat the food, I sure won't." The number one route for leaving poverty to get to the middle class is what? Finish high school. Presumably one where you can read, write, and compute at grade level, and that unfortunately is not happening, and that's going to change when I get to Sacramento. People can't even find their employees anymore because Gavin Newsom and the Democrats are paying people not to work. A third of all small businesses are now gone forever because he refused to allow us to use our own common sense, our own good judgment to determine whether and how and under what circumstances we wanted to operate our businesses. They were all shut down. A third of all small businesses gone forever, while allowing liquor stores and marijuana dispensaries to remain open. Churches were shut down. And then there's a rise in crime, violent crime. Up in San Francisco, up in Oakland, up in Los Angeles, up in San Diego. And by violent crime, I'm talking about shootings and homicides. In LA, up 40%. In Oakland, just a few days ago, Barbara Boxer got mugged. Her cell phone was taken. You're not rooting for Barbara Boston to be mugged, are you? It's a brutal crowd here. Brutal. Gavin Newsom was attacked by a mentally ill homeless person. Had he not had a security detail, he likely would have been injured. How many of us can travel around with a security detail to deal with the 20,000 people who were released early, 20,000 felons released early, many of whom convicted of serious offenses, 20,000 felons released early during the coronavirus pandemic? What could possibly go wrong? Historically, the majority of these 20,000 felons are likely to reoffend. It is one of the many reasons why crime is going up. And the very people who are disproportionately affected by this rise in crime are the very black and brown and Asian American people that the left prides itself on caring about. Outrageous cost of living in California. The average price of a home just hit $800,000. That is 150% more or 250% more, depending upon which study you read, above the national average. It is why, for the first time in our state's 170-year history, people are leaving California. We're having a net migration out of California. And when people making between $50,000 and $100,000 leave, the number one reason they cite, they cannot afford a home. And the reason houses are so expensive is because of the stranglehold environmentalists have Gavin Newsom and over Sacramento, to the point now where the average price of a home in California is 50% more than it would be if it weren't for the environmental extremist laws like the California Environmental Quality Act that pretty much allows anybody to stop any construction for any reason for an indefinite period of time. And that is why we do not have a supply of housing here in California. That is going to change. I'm going to declare a statewide emergency on housing, and I'm going to release hundreds of thousands of units so we can deal with this housing problem.
Yeah! Larry, 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 Larry.
And then we have a rise in homelessness. Have you been driving around the cities here in California? Are you kidding me? Depending upon what study you read, we have either 25% or 50% of the nation's homeless population. And the government has proved itself to be completely ineffective in dealing with it. What Gavin Newsom and the Democrats want to do is what they call a housing first policy. That is to build homes far more expensively than would be the case if the private sector built them, without dealing with why people are on the streets in the first place, without dealing with the underlying conditions in the first place. Some percentage of people who are homeless, we don't know what the percentage is. It might be 5%, it might be 10%, it might be 15%, we don't know. Some percentage of them are schizophrenic. By that I mean of danger to themselves and to others. They need to be removed from the streets for their own protection and for the protection of the rest of the homeless population. The rest of them, mentally ill or addicted to some sort of substance. They need to be treated. The government doesn't know how to do that, but churches do. Mosques do. Synagogues do. Nonprofits do. We need to empower them. And once they're off the streets, they have to go somewhere, and given the high cost of housing, there's nowhere to put them. When I declare the statewide emergency, as I mentioned, we'll be able to build low-cost housing. I spoke with former HUD Secretary Dr. Ben Carson just a few days ago. I said, Dr. Carson, talk to me about your plan for dealing with the homeless. He said, at the end of our administration, we had a plan. That we partnered with the Los Angeles Democrat Mayor, Eric Garcetti. We have 2 large parcels of federal land. We can build housing for a fraction of the cost of housing here in California because it's not burdened with all the rules and regulations that California burdened contractors and developers with. We can build the houses for a fraction of the cost, and when the people are treated, they will have somewhere to go. This problem can be solved, and we're going to solve it. And I don't need to tell you that our state is running out of water. I talked to farmers in Kern County and elsewhere. They're rationing water because we have not planned for wet seasons, dry seasons. We haven't added to our water infrastructure in about 40 or 50 years when the state was half its size. It's not like voters aren't aware of this. We pass bond measure after bond measure after bond measure. What happens? The projects just sit there. Projects for reservoirs sit there. Projects for raising dams sit there. Projects for more underground storage sit there. Meanwhile, when we do have rainy seasons, and we have them, the water drains right into the Pacific Ocean. It is outrageous. We're going to declare a public emergency on water, and we're going to unleash these projects that have been sitting around for decades. There's a desert nation known as Israel. Desert nation. Guess which desert nation is now water self-sufficient because of desalination plants they've been able to build? They got a little body of water in Israel, next to Israel, called the Mediterranean. We have a little body of water next to us called the Pacific Ocean. We can't figure this out? We're having rolling brownouts? Rolling brownouts? Really? We're forcing our utility companies to spend more and more money on weather-dependent, unreliable sources of energy known as wind and solar. And as a result, there's less money to deal with fire prevention, fire protection, less money to bury power lines underground, which is expensive, and that would cut down the severity of these fires. Speaking of which, the outgoing governor, Jerry Brown, had a plan to clear 500,000 acres of fallen trees, dead trees, and dry vegetation. 500,000 acres. The current governor bragged that he cleared 90,000. If that were true, it would have been a drop in the bucket, but it's not true. He only cleared 13% of what he said he cleared. He lied by a factor of 7. Meanwhile, we have plenty of money for a bullet train going from nowhere to nowhere, $100 billion, excuse me. B as in bodacious. We don't have enough money to clear down fallen trees, enough manpower to do that. Outrageous. These things are going to change when I get to Sacramento.
Yeah.
It's hard to find something this man has done right. Education Development Department. This department is set up for unemployment checks for the people in California who were shut down, couldn't go to work, couldn't operate their businesses. $30 billion, B as in bodacious, $30 billion stolen by crooks, people applying for unemployment benefits from jail, and they were getting benefits. Crooks, international crooks applying for unemployment benefits in Nigeria, and they were getting benefits. Meanwhile, 1 million Californians waiting for their benefits while $30 billion spent on criminals. What has this man been doing? What has he been doing?
Drinking fine wine.
So, people are leaving for the first time. Businesses are leaving for the first time. By the way, the rate at which businesses are leaving for the first 6 months of 2021, twice the rate at which they've left for the last 3 years. Businesses are leaving. Middle-class people are leaving. Quality of our schools is declining. Price of living gone up through the roof. Crime is up. Nothing this man has touched has gone right. We have 2 soft on crime DAs. One in San Francisco, one in Los Angeles, and his fingerprints are on both of them. The one in LA is named Gascon. He's facing a recall election. He should be recalled.
Oh yeah.
The one in San Francisco is named Bowden. He's facing a recall election. He should be recalled. Yeah. The person that gave Gascon his first job as police commissioner of San Francisco, Gavin Newsom. The person that gave him his first job as DA of San Francisco, Gavin Newsom. The person who supported him when he ran for DA, California, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom has got to go. Yeah. As Michelle says, vote yes to recall Gavin Newsom. Yeah. Make sure you fill out your ballot. If you don't trust the mail, you can follow it online or you can drop it off at a voting center. Vote yes on the recall. And then to recall him, who are you gonna call? Who are you gonna call? Let me end with this. Let me end with this. Other night I had a dream. I told Nina about it. It's October of 2021. And an old World War II vet, I know you're a Vietnam vet, sir. God bless you. God bless your service.
Thank you, thank you.
World War II? Korea? Vietnam? World War II vet, we still have them. We're losing one a day. He's got a couple of thick hearing aids, big thick glasses, he has a cane, goes up to a guard post, Sacramento Capitol building. And he says to the guard, "I'd like to speak to Governor Gavin Christopher Newsom." The guard says, "Sorry, sir, we have a new governor. His name is Governor Larry Elder."
Yeah.
Second day, same World War II vet, same guard post. goes up to the guy and says, I'd like to speak to Governor Gavin Christopher Newsom. Now the guard's thinking, okay, maybe the man is hard of hearing. So he says to him, I'm sorry, sir. Governor Gavin Christopher Newsom is no longer governor. We have a new governor. His name is Governor Larry Elder. Third day, same guy, same guard. Goes up to the guard and says, guard, I'd like to speak to Governor Gavin Christopher Newsom. Now the guard's thinking, okay, the guy's probably